Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most intriguing topics narrated in the Bible, the three individuals who incredibly never faced death. Yes, you heard that right. While it's common for all of us to expect to face death someday, the scriptures mention three exceptional figures who were taken to heaven without going through death. But who are these individuals? Let's find out together. Before we start, please hit the like button and subscribe. Your support really helps us create more great content. Thanks for your help. We begin with Enoch. Enoch lived long before the Great Flood, during times marked by significant ethical decay and rampant sin. During these dark years, the world was deteriorating, with the minds and actions of men constantly corrupted. Enoch, however, emerged as a symbol of virtue. He belonged to the seventh generation after Adam, being a direct descendant of the line of Seth and the father of Methuselah, the man who holds the record for longevity in the Bible with his 969 years. Enoch's lineage firmly positions him in the patriarchal line leading to Noah, a key figure for post-flood human survival. Enoch was not ordinary. His existence represented a clear opposition to the sinful tendencies of his time. While his contemporaries increasingly surrendered to vice, Enoch chose a completely different path. He decided to live in communion with God, a choice that clearly distinguished him from anyone else in his era. His commitment to maintaining moral conduct in an otherwise corrupt context demonstrates extraordinary faith and devotion to God. A distinctive feature of Enoch was his special relationship with God. The book of Genesis, chapter 5, verse 24 tells us, "Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him away." This phrase, walking with God, suggests a continual and profound bond with the Creator. Unlike many of his contemporaries who drifted away from God, Enoch maintained unwavering faith. Walking with God isn't just about following rules, but living in a manner that aligns with God's desires, including constant dialogue, obedience, and complete trust. This approach to life is a clear reflection of Enoch's character and spiritual dedication. Enoch's life path with God was characterized by a personal and intense relationship. It involved daily communication, listening to and following God's directions, and aligning his actions with divine will. This depth of relationship with God is what distinguished Enoch. His existence was a constant journey in faith, with God always at the center. This bond was so solid and sincere that it pleased God to the extent that ultimately he decided to take Enoch with him to heaven. Despite the brief narrative about Enoch's life in the scriptures, it has stimulated much speculation and further discussion in other ancient texts, such as the Book of Enoch. This text, although not part of the canonical Bible, offers a broader view of Enoch's life, describing his encounters with celestial beings and his journeys through the heavens. The Book of Enoch has exerted a considerable influence on ancient Jewish and Christian thought, presenting Enoch not only as a scribe of righteousness, but also as a mediator between God and men, further emphasizing his exceptional spiritual greatness. In the Book of Enoch, we discover fascinating details about Enoch's visions and his role in illuminating celestial mysteries. Through journeys across various heavens, Enoch has the opportunity to see the future and to learn directly about the divine design. These revelations not only enrich our understanding of his special bond with God, but also illuminate the spiritual path he undertook, full of celestial experiences. The narrative of Enoch is fundamental for several reasons. First, it attests that living a virtuous life is possible even in a degraded and sinful context. His devotion serves as a behavioral model for the faithful. The book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verses 5 to 6, reinforces this idea, saying, "By faith Enoch was translated, so that he did not see death, and was not found, because God had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony, that he pleased God. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him." Enoch's life demonstrates that a deep and personal relationship with God is not only possible, but also highly pleasing to him. Moreover, Enoch's transfer to heaven is often interpreted as a prefiguration of the rapture, symbolizing the hope that the faithful will ultimately triumph over death and be welcomed into divine presence. His existence exemplifies the blessings derived from faith and obedience. Therefore, Enoch's story is not merely a tale of escape from death, but an enlightening example of the kind of life that leads to such an exceptional destiny. Next, we have Elijah, one of the most prominent prophets of Israel, who lived during a particularly turbulent period in the nation's history. Governed by King Ahab and negatively influenced by his wife Jezebel, Israel had plunged into idolatry, embracing the worship of Baal and moving away from the true God. Despite the widespread apostasy, Elijah remained a faithful servant of Yahweh, as his name implies, "Yahweh is my God." Elijah appears abruptly in the first book of Kings, chapter 17, reflecting the direct and imperative nature of his mission. He was known for his boldness and the ability to stand against the prevailing idolatry, often finding himself in direct opposition to the highest echelons of power, such as King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. His ministry was rich in miracles and impressive demonstrations of God's power, characteristics that solidified his authority and courage in promoting a return to God. Elijah first emerges by announcing a prolonged drought as punishment for Israel's sins, an event that lasted 3.5 years, symbolizing divine power and his legitimacy as a prophet. During this period of drought, Elijah receives miraculous support, first from ravens, which bring him food while he is hidden by the brook Cherith, and then from a widow in Zarephath, whose supply of food is miraculously multiplied, and whose son is resurrected by Elijah. One of the climactic moments of his ministry occurs on Mount Carmel, as described in 1 Kings 18. Here, Elijah confronts 450 prophets of Baal in a public test of divine power. The prophets of Baal, despite their long pleas and rituals, fail to invoke fire from heaven, while Elijah, after thoroughly drenching his altar with water, calls upon Yahweh, who responds with fire so powerful it consumes the sacrifice, the altar, and even the water in the trenches. This extraordinary event convinces the people to acknowledge and proclaim the supremacy of Yahweh, culminating in the elimination of the prophets of Baal, marking a decisive moment in the fight against idolatry in Israel. A significant chapter in Elijah's life unfolds on Mount Horeb, where, fleeing from Jezebel's threats, the prophet experiences a profoundly significant divine manifestation. Here, contrary to expectations, God does not reveal himself through powerful manifestations like wind, earthquake, or fire, but in a gentle whisper. This moment underscores God's personal and direct approach, providing Elijah with new directives for anointing new leaders in Israel, laying the groundwork for a future of hope and renewal. The earthly conclusion of Elijah's ministry is spectacularly described in 2 Kings 2. Aware that his time was nearing an end, Elijah embarks on a symbolic journey from Gilgal to Bethel, then to Jericho, and finally to the Jordan, accompanied by his disciple Elisha. During this journey, he is recognized by groups of prophets who foresee his imminent earthly departure. Arriving at the Jordan, Elijah performs one more miracle. Striking the water with his mantle, he parts the river, allowing himself and Elisha to cross on dry ground. Shortly thereafter, Elijah offers Elisha the opportunity to make a final request, to which the disciple responds by asking for a double portion of his spirit, a symbol of prophetic continuity and blessing. Elijah agrees, on the condition that Elisha witnesses him being taken up to heaven. Shortly after, as they continue their dialogue, a chariot of fire pulled by horses of fire appears between them, and Elijah is carried into heaven in a whirlwind. This extraordinary event is witnessed by Elisha, who picks up Elijah's fallen mantle, signifying the transfer of prophetic authority, and begins his own ministry. Elijah's ascension represents not just a miracle, but also divine approval and the importance of succession in the prophetic mission. His passage into heaven on a chariot of fire marks a moment of great drama and significance, reaffirming the theme of transformation and overcoming earthly limitations. The life of Elijah, with his deep faith and courage in facing opposition, highlights the ability to stand firm in divine truth. His miracles and ascension powerfully illustrate God's sovereignty and his active presence in human life. Additionally, Elijah's story anticipates eschatological themes of the New Testament, such as the rapture and the second coming of Christ, strengthening the interconnectedness of biblical events and the promise of future salvation. Finally, we have Melchizedek, one of the most enigmatic and fascinating figures in the Bible. He first appears in Genesis 14, right after Abram's victory over the kings who had kidnapped his nephew Lot. Described as the King of Salem, a name evoking the idea of peace, Melchizedek is also a priest of the Most High God. In a significant encounter, he offers bread and wine and blesses Abram with the words, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." In recognition of his spiritual authority, Abram gives him a tenth of everything. The brevity of his biblical account does not diminish the significance of his role. Being both a king and a priest, Melchizedek embodies a dual authority that was unusual in antiquity. His reign, identified with Salem, is frequently associated with future Jerusalem, adding further depth to his symbolism. Abram's reception of gifts and blessings suggests an exceptionally high level of spiritual authority, emphasizing Abram's recognition of his superiority. Melchizedek is a unique figure also for the lack of details about his genealogy or origins, typical elements for other biblical characters. This absence of context shrouds him in mystery, further explored in the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 7, verse 3, where he's described as without father or mother, without genealogy, without beginning of days or end of life, resembling the Son of God, he remains a priest forever. This characterization has led many to interpret him as a divine figure or a theophany, a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. The dual role of Melchizedek as both king and priest positions him as a foreshadowing figure of Christ himself, who is recognized as the King of Kings and the High Priest according to the order of Melchizedek. This theological linkage reinforces the profound significance of his appearance and ministry, highlighting themes of royalty, priestly mediation, and divine blessing that find full realization in Jesus Christ. Psalm 110:4 further amplifies the importance of Melchizedek in theological discourse, stating, "The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek." This passage is significant because it is also cited in the letter to the Hebrews to outline the superiority and perpetuity of Jesus' priesthood over the Levitical priesthood, which was temporary and tied to descent. Jesus, following the example of Melchizedek, holds an eternal priesthood, thus ensuring continuous intercession and unceasing mediation between God and humanity. The role of Melchizedek as king and priest establishes him as unique in the biblical context. His priesthood was not based on blood ties, as was that of the Levites, but on his direct relationship with God and his inherent spiritual authority. This distinction is crucial for understanding Christ's priesthood. Jesus is a priest not by earthly descent, but by his divine essence and immutable role as the bridge between God and humanity. Interpretations of Melchizedek vary significantly among scholars. Some consider him a historical king-priest whose stories were passed down to emphasize the concept of an endless priesthood. Others see him as a Christophany, a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ in the Old Testament, a hypothesis supported by his lack of genealogy and eternal nature. Whatever his true identity, Melchizedek remains a powerful symbol of Christ's eternal priesthood and the unchanging covenant between God and his people. The story of Melchizedek offers us profound and varied teachings. Firstly, it highlights the importance of spiritual authority and the priestly role within God's design. Melchizedek's priesthood, based on his integrity and direct relationship with God rather than blood ties, reminds us that genuine spiritual authority derives from our relationship with God and our dedication to fulfilling his will. Secondly, the dual role of Melchizedek as both king and priest anticipates the figure of Jesus Christ, who unites both royalty and priestly mediation. This duality of roles is essential, as it reflects both leadership and intercession. Jesus not only leads, but also intercedes for us, acting as a bridge between humanity and God. Thirdly, the absence of genealogical details about Melchizedek stimulates reflection on the eternity of God's work. Just as Melchizedek's priesthood has neither beginning nor end, so is it for Jesus, emphasizing that divine intervention in human history is perpetual and the plan of salvation is timeless. Finally, the narrative of Melchizedek invites us to delve deeper into the scriptures and deepen our understanding of God's design. The mystery surrounding his figure prompts us to explore more carefully the richness of the biblical narrative in search of deeper spiritual truths. Reflecting on these narratives, we may also question our own spiritual life. Do we live in close relationship with God as Enoch did? Do we defend our faith courageously as Elijah did, even under adverse circumstances? Do we rely on the eternal priesthood of Jesus, understanding his ongoing role as mediator on our behalf? These biblical stories not only enrich our spiritual understanding, but also challenge us to assess and strengthen our walk with God, inspiring us to live in ways that reflect his honor and glory, and establishing a relationship that is as personal as it is eternal. Reflecting on the life of Enoch, we find ourselves asking fundamental questions about our daily spirituality. Do we dedicate time each day to walk with God? Are we attentive to his guidance and strive to please him in all that we do? Enoch's example shows the importance of continual communion with God and living a life that is pleasing to him. Considering the life of Elijah, we ponder our ability to be bold in defending our faith, even when it might be unpopular or risky. Do we trust in God's power to act in our lives and in the world around us? Elijah's story encourages us to be courageous and steadfast in our faith, relying on God's strength in times of trial. Reflecting on Melchizedek's eternal priesthood, we think about our relationship with Jesus as our high priest. Do we fully understand the importance of his intercession on our behalf? Are we aware and living according to the reality of his eternal priesthood, recognizing that he continuously mediates for us? Melchizedek's figure helps us better understand the depth of Jesus' priestly role and the eternity of his work. The stories of Enoch, Elijah, and Melchizedek provide profound teachings on faith, obedience, and the perpetual nature of God's work. These narratives challenge us to live in ways that honor God, to seek a deeper relationship with him, and to embrace the eternal vision that these biblical characters embody. They prompt us to evaluate our daily lives and our spirituality. Are we cultivating a daily communion with the Creator like Enoch? Are we steadfast in our faith like Elijah, even in the face of opposition? Do we recognize and value the eternal priesthood of Jesus as illustrated by the story of Melchizedek? These reflections invite us to a deep and personal examination, urging us to live in a way that reflects our devotion and commitment to God. The stories of Enoch, Elijah, and Melchizedek not only enrich our understanding of the Bible, but also invite us to reflect on our personal connection with God, the courage to maintain faith, and the awareness of the eternity of divine work. These narratives highlight that the journey of faith involves both personal and communal aspects, emphasizing the importance of a deep relationship with God and an active engagement in His mission. The dedication of Enoch, the courage of Elijah, and the timeless priesthood of Melchizedek serve as models of life animated by faith, obedience, and moral integrity, demonstrating that such virtues are not only pleasing to God, but can also lead to extraordinary outcomes. Interestingly, similar themes are found in other cultures and traditions, highlighting a universal human desire to transcend mortality and connect with the divine. For example, the Greek legend of Tithonus and the 8 immortals of Chinese tradition reflect the allure of immortality and supernatural powers, similar to how the Bible treats figures like Enoch and Elijah. Furthermore, the figure of the wandering Jew, who in legend is condemned to wander eternally for mocking Jesus, shows how other traditions explore the implications of eternal life, albeit in different nuances. These stories, while originating from various cultural contexts, share the theme of the desire for immortality and its spiritual implications, underlining the universality of our quest for transcendence and divine intervention. These reflections encourage us to consider how different cultures address these deep desires, reminding us that, despite diverse cultural expressions, the core of our spiritual quest has much in common. The narratives about Enoch, Elijah, and Melchizedek encourage us to explore these themes further, and to seek ways to deepen our spiritual relationship and better understand our place in the universe. This exploration of the lives of Enoch, Elijah, and Melchizedek offers a rich opportunity to reflect on how we live our faith and our relationship with God. Through their examples, we can find inspiration and guidance on how to enhance our spiritual connection and live a life that truly reflects our spiritual values. Enoch shows us the importance of daily dedication in walking with God, emphasizing that true communion with the Creator requires commitment and consistency. Elijah teaches us the courage to stand firm in our convictions, even when this might involve risks or misunderstandings. His example urges us to trust in God's strength even in the most difficult situations. Melchizedek, with his mysterious eternal priesthood, reminds us that Jesus' role as mediator is central to our faith and that his intercession is continuous and without end. These biblical narratives not only speak of overcoming physical death, but teach how to live a life that honors God in every aspect, emphasizing that our journey of faith is both personal and shared with the community of believers. If you find inspiration or insight in these stories, we invite you to share and discuss them with friends or your community. Leave a comment below to share how these stories impact your life or how you plan to apply these teachings. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss future content that can further enrich your faith and biblical knowledge. Thank you for following us, and remember, our journey of faith is a continual path of growth and discovery. May God bless you in every step of this journey. See you next time.